Oh, that explains a lot. Okay. I'm gonna get this together today.
Oh, take your time. I'm gonna go to that appraisal. I'm gonna stick with them.
Oh, good. Well, guess what I'm working on getting started.
I'm just,
There's a new gal who does them. I don't know.
yeah.
Hi, team. Sorry, we were having a little bit of technical difficulties, but it looks like we are up and going here. So just give me one quick moment. I know Cassandra's getting ready to make us the host for this Zoom meeting, and then we'll go ahead and get everything started. I'm glad everybody was able to at least make online as well, and everybody that's here. It's going to be a great class. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So just give us one quick moment, and she should get us set up. Okay, all right, so there's my notification. All right, I am the host. All right, great. So, all right, good morning, everybody. This is Cliff Cox with Cross Country Mortgage. You know, we have Kate and Jessica here too. So we're just excited to kind of get in front of you guys every time we have the opportunity to bring you some value, to bring you just, you know, lots of good things going along with the market right now. And, you know, as you guys know, and we've been getting a lot of feedback, whether it be positive or negative in regards to appraisals and things like that with, you know, kind of like what's going on in the market. So today we have Brandon Burns with Zap Appraisals. That's going to kind of go over a great market breakdown and lots of great information for everybody to kind of learn and to hear about today. And so without further ado, Brandon, come on up and I'll introduce yourself and what you want to discuss today. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, my name is Brandon Burns. I'm with Zap Appraisals. I'm one of the partners over here. And I want to start with a little story about how I met our boy Cliff Cox here. So I was driving over here. I had known Jessica from Homicide. I worked there before I came over to the appraisal side of things. And I was thinking about how I met Cliff. And it's actually a very funny and interesting story. When I first started here, it was about 4 years ago, and it was within my first couple of weeks. And I get a call from Cliff's assistant. It was Jill Marshall at the time. I don't know if any of you guys know Jill. super sweet loan officer assistant. She calls me and she says, Brandon, what kind of appraisers do you have going out to these properties? And I was like, uh-oh, what do we mean by, what kind of appraisers do you have coming out here? So long story short, we had an appraiser go out to Cliff's property, and she showed up in the back of an Uber, smoking a cigarette, still drunk from the night before. I thought I'd seen it all by that point, and I was only a month in. I started on this side right after COVID, as masks were coming in. So we all know values, everything was going through the roof. Tensions were super high, and Jill was not impressed. So from there, we ended up ripping the appraiser off, putting somebody else on. But what it ended up showing me, because essentially that was the straw that broke the horse's back, right? We had no idea who we were sending out there. I go to my boss and I said, how are we vetting out these appraisers? How do we know who we're working with? And they said, well, we've got a database of about 9,000. And anytime you type in a property address, boom, here you go. I'm like, well, we can do better than that, right? Like, we're having value disputes. We're going back and forth about a lot of properties. And I found out that appraisers are front lines. They're the folks that you guys meet. They go out and value the property, and essentially they're the product that we take to the lender, is their appraisal report. So I knew that we needed to step things up. So I personally started going out and meeting these appraisers, going to lunch, trying to figure out what type of person they are. And I found out very quickly after the Uber and showing up smoking a cigarette that all appraisers aren't happy appraisers. Some of them want to be out of the industry. I think it goes across the board, whether you're in law enforcement, sales, this, that, and the other. There's people that shouldn't be there. So I started vetting out our appraisers here in Ohio and across our markets, and it changed things drastically. So without further ado, let's jump into ZAP Appraisals and our training for today. After my long story, who here wants to take a swing at what an appraisal management company is? And on Zoom too, if you guys want to. I can't see you right now, but if you want to type in the chat box, you can answer as well. Appraisal management company. Cross country can't answer.
There's an appraisal management company. And between the appraiser and the lender and the client to make sure that everything is moving in the right direction and coordinating the process.
That's the best answer I've ever got. That was great. That was great. Yeah. Essentially, yeah. So after 2008, if you guys remember, that market and what happened, the government stepped in and said there had to be a third party, non-interested person in this transaction between the agents, you guys, the lenders, and the appraiser. And that's us. So that's essentially what an appraisal management company is. These guys have to have it because when they sell this loan on the back end on the secondary market, they either need to have a stamp from an AMC, or if you see like a Rocket or any of those bigger guys, they'll have an in-house department that acts as the same thing. So let's see, Cliff, did you see if they can see it on?
I think it is.
Okay, let me see. I'll just log into Zoom.
Thanks.
Or we can ask, hey, everybody that's on Zoom, unmute real quick. Can you guys see our, can you guys see everything on the screen right now from our major appraisal management company? Can you guys see it?
I can't, no.
No, I cannot.
I can't either.
Yes, no.
Mm-mm.
Hold on.
You guys see our presentation? No, they can't.
No.
There it is.
Okay,
Good.
now I can.
All right, then you can.
Yeah,
just-
we're good now.
Who's that? I say this the worst. Did they confirm that they could see it?
Can you guys see it now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Because I feel like if you're sharing the screen.
Yes. You can see it? Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Thanks, Kate. No, it would have been completely pointless if we didn't share.
We can see it a little bit differently. We can see it like your slide. Like your behind the scenes.
That is not what it looks like on my side. I think. All right, guys, for the technical difficulties, just give us a second.
Here, let's do new share. Okay. You are, which one are you actually?
On what is the appraisal process?
Let's
That
do
one.
this one.
Yeah. There we go. Perfect.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, all right, now we're good. Now we're good. So we covered what an appraisal management company is. So I want to talk about the process from as soon as Cliff and the guys, they just close the docs and we get the order for the appraisal. So once we get the order for the appraisal for the cross country, they'll send out a payment link. We cannot address or send this out to an appraiser until that payment link is paid by the borrower. We want to have some skin in the game so they're not just kind of jumping here and there, but regardless, once they pay, then we take a look at the address and we send it out to one of our local appraisers. Like we talked about vetting process, every single one of our panels within the CAK group, Cuyahoga, all over Ohio, we have established panels of high volume appraisers. So once it's paid for, we send it out to an appraiser. The appraiser then schedules the job. And I want to set some expectations here because most of the time folks will think that once the appraisal part or the inspection part is done, then we get the report back in 24 or 48 hours. That's not typically how it works because appraisers will either set it up for the middle of the week, beginning of the week, and our turn times are about 5 to 7 days, regardless of when they inspect. So if they inspect on Monday, I would expect to have the report Thursday, maybe Friday. So after we get an appraiser signed up for it and it's scheduled and they go out and do the inspection, right? Some appraisers do some comps before or they'll do them after. Question.
So, my understanding was that there was a time limit or something. All the places I dealt with over the years, you had so many days to get that appraisal back. That's not the case.
So it may be the case with VA. We do not do VA appraisals. VA handles VA. Okay, because I heard that about VA, but for us, there's no like ticker, there's no guarantee of when they're going to call, and there's no ramifications if they don't call in a week. However, my guys always call within the first 24 hours or 48 hours, depending if it's a weekend or something like that to get this scheduled.
It would probably be someone that we did not have enough time to pay.
Bingo.
Because all of our appraisals are turned so quickly that we really don't run into that. But if it was something like there would be a reason that it was taking longer, like they couldn't find comps and they typically notify the AMC if it is taking longer, like this is why it's taking longer.
That's exactly right. They'll reach out. So communication is huge. But kind of circling back to what Jess said, that was part of the vetting process. We found out that agents and buyers are obviously very attached to the appraisal. It's kind of one of the big things that gets the loan to go through. So delaying it when appraisers don't call, we addressed that, and people that weren't willing to communicate with us on a regular basis, we kicked them off the panel, just because we only work with top tier guys that want to be there, right? So warranted that the inspection went great, values there, there's enough comps in the neighborhood, we get the report back, our reviewers go through it, ship it over to cross country, and it closes. So essentially that is the easy process with the appraisal management company. We all know things don't go perfectly. What can usually stop an appraisal or bring up questions? Any answers on Zoom too? If you want to answer, you're more than welcome to. What could stop an appraisal or get lending involved or make it so the deal can't go through? That can be one of them, which we just went through. That can be one of them. What's maybe something else? Exactly. Okay. All right. So next is, we'll go with technology, guys. I tried to feel really cool there when I went to the next slide. It didn't work out. You saw that. You saw that. Didn't work. Repairs. right, repairs can stop an appraisal dead in its track and stop the loan process. It can stop everything, unfortunately. So going into FHA repairs, we all know chipping and peeling paint. You know, if you see it, some of them around window trims or it's not that much, it's not going to get called out. But when we start seeing it on the whole entire left side of a garage or on an outbuilding, even on an outbuilding, if it's in the sale, it needs to be scraped and painted. Same thing with handrails. Health and safety is a huge piece. All of the appliances need to be working, water, refrigerator, all that fun stuff. But this is one of the things that can stop appraisals. Has anybody had any interesting stories with repairs or
I've done chip-
you've been smirking the whole time? Yeah.
Stuff.
Have you?
And then they come back out and say, hey, you can't clean it up. And you take the blower out.
That's one of the tougher ones that we have to deal with, right? Because when we call out for chipping and peeling paint, yeah, I've gotten burned by that one once or twice. And it's difficult, right? Because you can do all the scraping and painting, but if those paint chips are still there and that appraiser has to take a picture and then their underwriting sees that picture, oh, you know what I'm saying? The chips are still there. There's nothing you can do. So, yeah. FHA is going to be more rigid than conventional. Conventional, we all know, is an easier way to go if we have a more trying property, right? But when it comes to conventional, you always want to think of health and safety. I always think about my little girl who's 6 years old, walking around the property. Like if there's a hole in the floor, is that going to affect her? Is she going to get hurt? Are there hanging wires? That kind of stuff. But there's something else that I also wanted to touch on because we're seeing it more in this market is even if you're going conventional, a lot of banks, whether it be cross country, whether it's Fairway, Rocket, they are looking at this a little bit more and calling out maybe a handrail on a conventional deal. They're calling out some other things because on the secondary market, these investors are requiring it. So if you're seeing any of that, we're trying to help you out as much as we can. But at the end of the day, whatever these investors will accept, they'll accept. But one thing that me, Cliff, and Jess have worked on very well is getting out in front of some of these repairs. So whenever you have a property that might be a fix and flip, or it needs a little bit of love, if you have any questions, or you want to know if this will be called out on appraisal, call me. I have my cards out here. And for you guys on Zoom, I'll send out my information or call Cliff. We like to address these properties and these questions up front so that, you know, when we're 2 hours from a closing table, we're not worrying about chipping and peeling paint or maybe a pressure release valve on a hot water tank. So anything like that, please bring up. We found out that communication is huge. So don't ever hesitate to call me or call Cliff and we can address things up front. Does anybody have any questions about repairs while we're here on Zoom or in the classroom?
One thing they bring up kind of back too is, you know, when it comes to repairs is, you know, I would say most of the time the seller, you know, is required to make the repairs, but talk about situations where, you know, we have buyers that are wanting to make repairs, whether they feel comfortable enough where the approval process is far enough along where they're okay, hey, we just got to get this done and we're all going to work together to make this work. You know, maybe some examples of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. So when I talk about repairs, that comes with a second appraisal. It's called a 1004D or a final inspection report. So after, we'll just keep going down this chipping and peeling paint route. After that's called out on the first appraiser or appraisal, then they're underwriting or will condition it subject to, and we'll get a final inspection or a 1004D report, and the appraiser has to go back out, and that's another trip fee. And when I say get out in front of it, is we can completely cancel out that second appraisal or that final inspection if we address the chipping and peeling paint before the appraisal goes in for the first inspection. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. Any questions? Anybody on Zoom? If you want to raise your hand, I can see you. All right. ANSI standards. ANSI standards is something that rolled out last year. And I'm starting to see it play a factor here in Canton, Akron, not so much in some of the other areas. But what ANSI standards is, it's a new guideline that rolled out for appraisals. And the short story of it is In some of these bungalow homes in Cape Cod, you guys know how they have the bonus rooms upstairs that have the canted ceilings. Okay, so with those canted ceilings, over 50% of that area needs to be above 7 feet. If it is not above 7 feet, that room, regardless if it's above grade, will not be counted to the overall gross living area or GLA. That makes sense? Okay, it's been a game changer for some, one-off properties. So it's going to affect value, but if you have some of those areas or you're listing some of those houses and you're like, oh no, Brandon, is this thing going to go? Call me. We'll take a look at it and find out if you can use it. But typically, unfortunately, the answer is usually no. And now, even with below grade, so like walkouts, egresses, that does not, if it is below grade at all, it does not count to the GLA, the gross living area above grade whatsoever. It is counted on the report, right below on the grid. And I'll show you guys here in a second where that's at as below grade. But as far as above grade listed on the MLS, it's not counted there. Question.
I'm dealing with something like that right now, which is kind of crazy. I have over 860 square feet finished in a walkout lower level.
Yeah.
The rec room has 2 big giant windows plus the walkout door.
Yeah.
It's got a bedroom with its own window, big
Yeah.
giant window. It's got a full bath. The appraiser gave me $4,000 of value for that. Wouldn't count the square footage.
Where was that?
That's a game changer. It's over in Fulton.
Yeah.
And my sellers are like, no, we're not taking this appraisal, period. So now I'm like trying to make that work, and it's really a tough one.
It's going to be tough. It sounds like cash is going to have to be brought to the table. And that's when I talked about those one-offs. That's it. Because it has the egress, it has the walkouts, and getting buyers to, or excuse me, sellers to understand that it can't be easy. Right. And so I have the guidelines and the links that I'll send out. So if you can, print it off or show it to them, just why it's not counted, but that appraiser making that adjustment, I gotta be honest, without even seeing the property, it sounds pretty fair.
$4,000.
It depends, but I've seen appraisers not make any adjustments. Like it can get real nasty real quick, especially with that setup, because it sounds like a beautiful basement.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I mean, just like top to bottom, it sounds beautiful. But since they rolled this out, not only is it affecting those types of houses, it's affecting a lot of those houses in California that are built into the hills. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what do you do about the subterranean house out on Fulton Road? I think Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
And it's literally, the roof is at ground level. The house is built into the.
That's just down past the high school, isn't it? I've never seen one of those. I haven't seen one of those. And we haven't done any deals on any of them. There are, with any type of guidelines, there's always a fail safe, right? So if ANSI standards can't be applied, there is a code that the appraiser can drop into the report and then appraise it normally. And then their underwriter sees that code and they'll go through county and look at this thing. And typically they'll stamp it and move it on. If it's like that house on Fulton, because I've seen it and all you see is the roof, right? And then it's all built down underneath. Yeah. So I don't know the answer for that one because we haven't done any of them, but I know that if it is like that, they do have a fail safe, and it is literally like a QR code that they'll drop on the appraisal report that we could not measure to ANSI standards.
Yeah, so would it be some, is it the name of the type of the house?
Yeah, what did they call, what did they,
Victorian?
Subterranean, I don't know.
that's, yeah, I think that would be it. So that's what we're seeing, like with the ANSI standards, just keep that in the back of your head during listings. That can prevent a lot of things on the back end. And if you have any questions about it going, please call one of us directly and we'll definitely give you the best guidance that we can. So 2023 summer forecast. Every summer since I've started on the appraisal side has been different, right? Like nothing we've ever seen. So for this market, I'm still seeing values of homes continuing to rise. I don't think it's nearly as aggressive as we saw last year or even the year prior to it. But for the most part, we're still seeing values rise. As far as offers, what are you guys seeing? So I work with a lot of local brokers around here. we're seeing a lot of offers still going over asking. Are you seeing the same thing? Okay. Then it goes right into our next thing, low inventory. I'm not seeing a bunch of inventory out there, like in North Canton. We're seeing a bunch of people come in and buy, but we're not seeing a lot of people list, either because their rate's low enough or they've been there for 30 years, so on and so forth. So we're seeing a lot of sellers, but we're not seeing a lot of listings, which then is, flipping over into those multiple offers, the, open houses where we're just getting a ton of people there. Is that kind of status quo here for KW as well? Yeah, I figured.
So the report this morning that said that they looked at that moratorium 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And now, we're in the top 4 states for foreclosure.
Really? And when do they pull that? Like, what are we seeing now for foreclosures?
I don't know, personally, I haven't seen one.
I haven't seen a lot, around the neighborhoods or whatever. I'll see one here and there. But as far as that dumping, I don't know when it's going to happen. I talked to a lot of people that are kind of banking on it, the foreclosures and whatnot. I just haven't seen it tip personally. That's why I was asking. I wonder if it's like more like, if we're going to talk about Ohio, if it's like a Cleveland area, downtown for those investment properties, because or even Columbus. But as far as like North Canton, Jackson, Maslin, I'm not seeing a bunch of foreclosures, at least in our area. But so yeah, low inventory, and then going into repairs, even on conventional, we covered that a little bit. Some of these lenders, again, they're selling them on a secondary market. So if there is, handrails that could make it through conventional, sometimes they're getting called out. Same with scraping and painting, health and safety and all that. And then last one, my favorite one, appraisals not coming in at contract price, right? So we're getting multiple offers where they're going 20 grand over, 30 grand over. And then your appraisal comes in and we're going to call it 20 grand or 30 grand light. So into my favorite part of the presentation. Value appeals. We never win appeals, all that fun stuff. Value appeals is your opportunity to have the appraiser go back and take a look at this thing again. One thing to keep in mind with value appeals is you only get one opportunity, right? So we don't want to throw, a list of, I'll just call them crap comps at these guys, because they put in 4 or 5 hours in these reports. As soon as they get a list of 8 or 9 comps and they are not comparable, they just, it's done. And remember with appraisers too, I know that typically you're not going to meet an appraiser. All you see is the report. And if you talk to them, it's, about a low value or something along those lines. Appraisers are people too. They don't like to come out and do these kinds of things, right? They're appraisers for a reason, but there is somebody on the other side of that report. So keep that in mind. When we go in to do value appeals, there's a really easy way to find comps and good comps to submit to these appraisers. And the way to do that is go into your original appraisal report, and we call this part the grid. It's usually page 3 of the appraisal report. They'll have the introduction of the subject property, so on and so forth, they are licensing, and then they go right into it. This is the grid. And we'll want to take a look at first how appraisers are choosing their comps. Appraisers will choose their comps one of 2 ways. The really analytical guys will start by going outside about 3 miles from where the subject property is and then dial it in from there. Other appraisers will start right in the neighborhood and then expand out as they need to. And where you can see that is on the top of the page. Here's our subject property, Tanner Ave, and then our comparables 1, 2, and 3. Now, this was a very dicey appraisal that your girl Patricia Rossett did. Cliff. Patricia, this is Patricia's.
Oh,
This is Patricia's.
okay.
Yeah, I gave her a doozy for this one. And
She's good.
she's very good. Here's our subject. She had to go out 2.6 miles, 1.7, and 3.2. Those distances are far. But for this property, it had to be done. And we always get the question, well, what happens if there isn't a comp? I can guarantee there's a comp somewhere. Whatever the house is, whatever's going on with it, there's a comp and we can use it. So that's where you'll find out how far they're going out. You cannot go any farther than they went. So if they went out to, what's the farthest, 3.2 miles, you do not go any farther than that because they will, there's no reason for it, right? The next section on the grid to take a look at is going to be the above grade room count. And that's halfway down the page here. You'll see it on the left-hand side for you guys on Zoom, where it says above grade room count. We've got 6 here, 6 here, 6, and 6. Always make sure that they're comparable with that. If not, the appraiser will make adjustments. And I know that you can't find perfect comparables for every single value appeal, but if you use this as a benchmark of finding your comparables, I can promise you that the appraiser is going to take a look at it and really give it some weight to it. Now, on top of picking your comps, you want to pick 3 to 5 comps, or as many as the appraiser used. So in this case, it was 4. You'd use 4 comps and then submit reasons on each one, even a 1 or 2 liner of why those comparables should be replaced with the appraiser's comparables that they're using. So all of this making sense? Any questions so far about value appeals or anything like that? Please.
I do have a question. So this property I have, it's in a planned unit development.
Okay.
Okay, versus condos. Some people call them condos, you know. So with a planned unit development, don't you have to use residential properties as a comp in place of condos or not? Or is it a blend of both?
It's a blend of both. It's a blend of both. And depending on what development that you're talking about, is this the same one in Canal Fulton? Typically, unless you're the first house selling, you're going to be able to find it in the neighborhood. But to give it more of a diverse appeal to underwriting, they will throw in some other comps, but whatever they can find there, they'll use them residentially. So.
And the comps that we have to use to, have any kind of appraisal dispute process is they have to be sold comps. Sometimes we get over listings or we get over, comps that it's been, over 6 months, something like that, like older ones, something that happened last year.
Correct.
It's just tough. That's why when Brandon, his point was making sure that we have the best punch first. Make sure we have the best comps that we're going to try to dispute this value because we only get one shot at it. It's similar to like a VA appraisal. I know Brandon doesn't handle these, but I mean, when you have what's what they call the tidewater situation, when they notify you that, hey, the appraisal's been done, but they don't give a value or anything like that. That basically means when they say a tidewater situation, that means that the value is probably not coming in what the listing price is. And we need to get our comps in as soon as possible. We reach out to the listing agent, buyer's agent, get everybody involved to make sure that we have the correct comps to be able to dispute or, justify the value that was given on the purchase contract.
Thanks, Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Going through the chat there. Any other questions?
New construction and the condo isn't even completed yet.
What do you mean?
If appraised low, there's an appraisal gap there.
And an appraised low? Is it? Tell me where it's at.
Cherry Springs, Massillon.
Okay. All right. So with new construction, right, we get plans and specs and all that fun stuff, and the appraiser takes all of that into account. How many are built in the neighborhood? And were you the first house to go?
No, there's several, but we're selling 4,000, so another 4,000 more.
Correct. So after that happened, has condos sold since that price adjustment? Is it one of ours, Jess? Is it one of ours?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could email the property address, we'll take a look at it and see if there's anything.
Do you know any others?
We have to check with those.
If it came in 4,000 short, I could almost tell you probably not,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because if it did support it, then the appraiser would see that. And they always want to hit, contract price if they can, right? If it's $4,000 short, it means you're gonna be the first one to go. But I'll take a look at it and confirm it with you.
And like, And she just made a good point too, if they did like a lot of like upgrades to the property, the
Which they
upgrades,
did.
the upgrades might not, like the cost of the upgrades might not be making the value of the home go up that much.
But I'm thinking with it, if they did granite countertops or they upgraded the lighting, the plumbing,
Yeah,
or the cabinets, that should take, the materials are more expensive.
right. And I've been telling that to people in renovation loans, because that's why the appraisals have been shorter on renovation loans, because the cost of material isn't increasing the value that much. And that could be why too.
Correct. And you're not going to get the full weight for materials. But if we would to go this value dispute route, I would say submit your list of materials, breakdown invoices, whatever you have. Because like Cliff said, we get one shot at it. And why not have the appraiser take a look at it and just have it, right? So even circling back to there, so going to inspections and appraisers, whenever you do have a listing, I think that agents are your biggest advocates. So if you can be there when the appraiser's there, it is absolutely crucial. If you have your CMAs and your comps, especially on more challenging properties, have them there with you in a folder. The idea behind it is, you're smiling again, I'm watching you.
I'm fine with it because if this guy's having an off day and he particularly doesn't like the way you talk, then.
I can't speak for non-cross country deals, I can't. But I've talked to every single one of my appraisers and they expect you guys to be there. You know what I'm saying? But you're right. You get some guys that are, I call them the grumpy old men in the industry, right? The grumpy old men that go to shoot values. And yeah, trust me, I know they're out there and I could see you getting a licking if you were there and, you know, here's some comments. Well, I'm an appraiser, I can't. Yes, you can.
I just think on the count.
That's it. But, you know, I'm not saying to follow these guys around and be like, hey, look at that window trim here. Oh, they updated that light switch here. All I'm saying is be there, introduce yourself. Here's some comps. If you have any questions afterwards, let me know. Done.
I try to be there just to get answer questions if they have any, and then I have a list of the updates and upgrades and when they did them.
Yep.
And just for curiosity's sake, I'll throw in my comps,
Yep.
and I might throw on page one of my multiple offers,
I love it.
just so they know. Now, I have had, my grumpy old man was not happy that I did that.
Some of my guys wouldn't be too with the offers because they can't, just to let you know. But yeah, I get it.
But it basically showed everything's above.
Correct.
Above list price.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, if I was an appraiser, I'd like to know that.
Probably, but unfortunately, it doesn't play a factor. So they tend to only use what they can use because it's enough information already to whittle down to a number for the value.
I just had, I have new construction and the first house in the new construction where there's gonna be 20 some houses.
Oh, wow.
The guy, he was a grumpy old guy, but I never got the meeting, it was just over on the phone. Or he sent me, he goes, you know, this house specs out at this price. How are you assuming that you're going to get this price? I said, look through the bushes, there's Montecito, Montebello, and there's Sanctuary.
Mhm.
And then he didn't call me back after that. It came to get the work done.
Fun to see that. Sanctuary. Were you in Bobolink?
No, just across the street, starting out.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was curious.
There that we're starting was the first house.
Who's the builder?
Quality Care Construction.
Okay. Small town. We know exactly where all this fun stuff's at. Do you have a question? No. Okay. Did you have a question? No. All right. So yeah, I would say if you can be there for the inspection, right? Be there, introduce yourself, comps, all that fun stuff in an envelope, pass it over, hang out, and then they're out. But that's what I think is, as agents, especially in this market with what's going on this summer, be there. You're your biggest advocate for the buyer. So
Another scenario that's occurred in the past. I've had a vendor from appraisal where they sent an apprentice out to do the appraisal. And the main appraiser signed off on it. He was never there. Another one where they used comes from, it was in Tuscaloosa, they used comes from historic districts in Massillon, the Massillon City Schools, not Tuscaloosa schools. So I challenged that one.
I would.
I had another one where they did, a remodel, and it was from 1100 to 3,000 square foot. Challenge. I won that one too.
I like it.
And then I had another one where they decided that they only needed a desktop appraisal. And I'm like, okay, you can't do a desktop appraisal on the property. It's totally been redone in the past 5 years.
Yep.
okay, the interior as well as the exterior. Well, that the lender just wants the desktop. So guess who went out to the picture? I went out, I did all the pictures, and he was even on phone, take this, take a picture of that, take a picture of this. He sat at his desk and got $500 from the buyer, and the buyer was good. What happened?
Wow.
Okay.
That's where the lender's huge. I mean, I don't want to, press cross country or anything like that. I've never have heard anything like that. And it scares
There's a new
me.
one. There's a new one. Now they're doing videotaping, so they send a videographer out to, and they videotape the car.
I've-
Send that video to the appraiser,
Mhm.
and they're sitting on the top behind the computer on the appraisal.
So they're calling, some of these are called PDR reports. Yep, PDRs. And that's when the bank just needs to sign off that basically the value's there, right? We don't need to give an exact number, but we're not going to go, head over heels for the property in case it falls out. But as far as the appraisal you talked about where you were taking pictures and all that fun stuff, yeah, that's nasty. I don't like hearing that. And that's where, working with the lender, somebody like Cross Country is huge. Because I've heard, and I'm not going to throw other names out of lenders here, but it's very common to have that happen. And it's not a PDR report is something, I'm not a huge fan of it. It is where a third party goes out, takes pictures, right? And then the appraiser types it up. That does not charge $500. It's typically half the fee or something along there, because a lot of the legwork, guys, does go into typing up the report. The inspection part is the quick one. They're there, what, 25 minutes, 30 max? They're spending hours typing this on the back end. So that's where the money comes from. But the 500 for that report, that was a bad shake, but hopefully the deal worked out fine for you. Good. Yeah, bad shake for that one. Circling back to apprentices, this is a difficult one, right? Because remember how I told you grumpy old men and this, that, and the other. What does everybody think the average age of an appraiser is? Close. That'd be on the younger side, you know what I'm saying? But it's 50 to 60 years old. We have appraisers that are 70. I haven't heard any 80s yet, but they're out there. So let's put it this way. When I got out of high school, I didn't think I was going to be in the appraisal management or appraiser industry, right? We're not getting a lot of new blood coming in. To get licensed being an appraiser, it takes about 2 years. And out of that 2 years, you need about 1,000, 1,200 supervisory hours. So here's what happens with your apprentice and supervisor trainee situation. Some lenders on certain non-jumbo conforming loans, basically your cookie cutter houses, will allow for trainees to go out and do the actual inspection. However, they're just doing the inspection. When it comes to typing up the report, comping up the report, that supervisory signature there, he is responsible for that value. He's responsible for the report, and it goes against his license. So if they're using trainees, these guys are triple checking on the back end that there isn't any problems with these appraisals, because if there isn't a problem and then Jessica or Cliff have to go through a buyback with Cross Country, that goes back to that appraiser. So they are very stringent on, one, who they allow to be trainees, and two, the report that gets submitted over from there. Any other questions?
PDRs, just to kind of give you an idea, where we're starting to see more of those now is, in some cases, when we're running a file, okay, through, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, and we're getting this, what they call an appraisal waiver, okay? I think this is more of a Fannie or Freddie, extra step just to try to ensure that the value is what it is, because they're giving us the appraisal waiver, but some of them are saying that you'll get an acceptance letter, an acceptance waiver with a PDR report, which means they don't need a full-fledged, appraisal. And, as opposed to $500-600 appraisal, as opposed to the PDRs, maybe $250, something like that. If you just go out there and do the picture, they don't even send the value back with it. They just kind of send out pictures. They get all the basic information about the property, just to go along with the appraisal waiver that the system gives you. So that's where we're starting to see, most of those. And we'll let everybody know, at least with us, that if a PDR is going to be needed on one of the appraisals, it tells us right in the findings. In some cases, we need one, but in some cases we don't. But they typically tend to be when we've gotten lucky enough to have an appraisal waiver on that file.
The buyer have a choice. There's, probably say, hey, everything works out, we have a appraisal waiver, we don't need an appraisal.
No, they can absolutely have it if they still want to have one, absolutely. This is just an option for them. You can save them a couple bucks and say that, hey, they're stating that this, all of the data in the system, when we run the file, when we run that address through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, it's saying this property is worth what it's worth.
Back to the condo. The upgrades, yeah, and she's put over 4,000 into it. She's put another wall in it, all granite countertops, all, hardwood floors. I mean, she's put over 4,000. So, I mean, could it cover that gap?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say yes or no. What I'd like to do is the appraiser that's actually on that file. I'd like to talk to him and get it over to him, but I haven't seen it happen a lot, to be honest with you. So I want to set your expectations correct, but we will talk to him and see what can be done there. But make sure like an itemized invoice list, whatever I can get over to him would be perfect. And me, Jess, will get on an email together so we can, discuss.
A letter from the contractor.
Yeah. That'd be fine. We just want something official, right? That has an exact breakdown of what was done. Not something on a napkin. I mean, I promise you, I've seen them from a, crumpled up piece of paper. I've seen them on napkins. I've seen things like that. So I just open up with something on a letterhead, a breakdown invoice of what's been done.
Never had an appraisal overturned, just when the agent really was thorough and wrote up like an awesome rebuttal to the appraisal.
Mhm.
And we've had some overturned, just the ones that I don't want to put the extra work in, but want the appraised value to go up. It's like, well, you gotta, we're more than happy anytime to do a rebuttal, but we need sufficient information to show why we have a rebuttal. Yeah.
Any other questions? That pretty much wraps up my side. So here we usually do a Q&A and wrap it up. And I know Cliff's got some pizza out there too. Sorry for the guys on Zoom. It might be in the fridge when you get here, but any questions from Zoom or here in the classroom, please feel free.
I have a question. Someone
Under
else.
10%,
Shoot.
under 10%.
But I do feel like, this is just me personally, like, I feel like you should always do it though, because on the chance that, you can get it overturned unless like you're in a complete, rush to get it closed.
Yeah.
Like, it can't hurt to get a rebuttal,
It can never hurt. It can never hurt unless you, go at it with, anger or something like that. You're probably going to get back from the appraiser. So you go in with a little love, you probably get some love back, regardless of what happens to the value.
Yeah. What about additional value for, let's say, ADA compliant doorways, bathrooms, countertops, ramps in the garage? Because an appraisal adding value for ADA. Because I think
They do when it comes to, I haven't seen it with like the walkway up there, because you want to think of the typical buyer that's going into it, right? Are they going to want something like that there? But where I did see some value go into it is one of those, the chair stairs, couple grand or something like that. But as far as the ramps or any other doorways, I haven't seen it, no. Justin, how about you? Any questions, buddy?
No, thanks.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I think is that it for today?
Any Zoom questions? I didn't see if there's
I didn't.
everything
I
good?
have a
I
question.
think so. They just want the slideshow sent over, and they'll send over the ANSI standards. And anything else you guys need. So don't hesitate to call. I put my cards out there and I'll email the group here. Call me.
Can you hear
email
me?
Anytime for questions.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay. Thanks,
Can you,
everybody.
wait. Can you hear me? Cliff?
Let me use the computer.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm here 20 minutes early and I still had tech problems, buddy. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
Hey, Cliff? Can you hear me? What's happening?
Must be quick sheet that you.
All right, everybody. Have a good day.
Hey,
Be
Cliff?
saved.
Cliff? What is going, can you hear me, Cliff? Hello?
Cliff? We can hear you, just I don't think he can.
I don't know what's going on. Dang it. Well, I guess I can't ask my questions. Call him.